So as Mark mentioned, just wait a moment. As Mark mentioned, my name is Mary Ward, and just on the agenda today, as you know, Mark mentioned the Q&A will be in the end of it, but feel free to post any questions that you might have in the chat. They might be appropriate at the time, and I can try and answer as many questions throughout the actual webinar, or we'll also have time at the end to have a Q&A. So feel free to interact with me. If you have your Google Workspace opened up, you might want to follow along as well. Please feel free to do so. So we'll aim to finish at around about normally 40 minutes or so thereabouts. So we'll get started and I'll look to continue and talk through it for about a half an hour or so, and then I'll open up for the Q&A at the end. But as I said, feel free to pop any questions in the chat that you might have. So today we're looking at the Google Workspace, otherwise known as G Suite. And what we're going to be looking at in this particular environment is how to boost our productivity through anywhere, anytime collaboration. And to be able to do this, this is what we call Google Workspace. So we're going to be focusing on the functionality of the chat. And what I mean by chat, that's the one-to-one where you have an ad hoc chat with a colleague, be it internal or external. If you have the permissions for external chats, you can also have a group chat where you might have a chat with a group of people. You can share files in those chats, and you can jump out onto a video call as well, or a phone call if you have it set up correctly. However, Google Workspace, got a faux pas there, has introduced spaces, otherwise which were known as rooms. So within the actual spaces itself, it's a fantastic place to meet with team members. Maybe it's based on a project. It could be an announcements where you're just looking for additional information, knowledge database. There's lots of different reasons why you might want to create a particular space where you can actually join up with your teams and be able to chat and share files and collaborate on an actual file, be an actual sheet, or it could be a document, or it could be a slide, to give you an example. And of course, throughout all of this within your Google Workspace environment, you can then jump out into the meeting, whether it be a video meeting or a call. You can schedule meetings as well. So, and also within this area as well, which we'll have a look at, apart from sharing the files, you'll also be able to assign tasks to your colleagues and to yourself, all under the environment of your actual space itself. So here's just a quick overview of what we're going to cover in this webinar: chat spaces, collaboration with your documents, your slides and your sheets, and we'll also create and assign tasks to each other, and we'll look at how to schedule a meeting. So I'm going to go and open up my Google Workspace now. So I'm going to turn off my video for this, and I'll just jump across to it. So hopefully you can all see that now. Let me know. Is it coming up okay? Give me the thumbs up. So within the actual Google space itself, I'm just going to go back to the dashboard, and within the dashboard, when you sign in, I take it you've all signed in to your Gmail, and within your actual Gmail, you can go in through the waffle, which is the Google Apps on the right-hand side, and you're able to access the various apps within there. You also may have a dashboard depending on how it's set up. And from here, you have the Google Chat. And this is where I'm going to access the chat, the spaces, and the meets for you. So I'm going to click onto it. It's going to open up the actual Google Chat for me. And within here, you'll notice it's split out into, I'll just collapse the items here. So you have the three items, which is your chat, your spaces, and your meet. So I'm going to expand the chat. As I mentioned, that would be the main area that everybody would use on a daily basis, where you'd have one-to-one chats, or you could set up a group chat. And you can see from the icons here in my environment, I have some group chats and I also have some one-to-one chats. You'll notice from this morning, my colleague here, Kathy, under marketing at Your Skills, has sent me an actual chat. And this is actually in bold, telling me that a chat has been unread. So I click onto it, it opens up the chat, and here you have the area where you can actually chat. You have your chat history. You can say, how are you? This is a little quick text if you want to avail of those, and hit the send, the little aeroplane as they call it. You can also free type in your actual text, or you can actually set up your emojis, your GIFs and so forth, and you can upload files into an actual chat. So you can go in and open up a file from your file explorer. If you wanted to bring something across, you can upload a file into the chat. You'll also notice on the left hand side you have a little plus button, and from in there you can attach an actual file from your drive, your Google Drive. So if I click onto this, this will bring me in to my actual Google Drive, and I can pick up an actual doc or a spreadsheet or a sheet or an actual slide. So say insert, and this then will send it off in the chat. But that's only on a one-to-one. If I haven't shared this because it is in my drive, it allows me to say, how would I like to share this with your colleagues? So for Kathy, I'm going to say that it's going to be a viewer only. So means that it's read only, and send the message. And you'll see that will go off, and Kathy then will be able to open that up. So that's on the one-to-one chat if you wanted to bring it in. You can also add additional people if you wanted to view members and add additional people to a chat. So if you look here, you can say view members, and you can add additional members to an existing chat. Okay, so chat one-to-one or a group chat. Now I'm going to collapse that and we'll have a look at the actual spaces. So as I said, feel free to add any questions that you might have in the actual chat, and I'll come back and answer them at either at the end or at the end of this workspaces when I set these up. Here I've set up some spaces just to show you what they look like already. So you'll see I've got an external consultants, and this means it says external, which means there are external and internal people being added to this particular space. Here I have another space where this is just internal. So what it does when you have external people added, it will tell you that you have both, just as a reminder that when you're doing chats, etc., that you might have external stakeholders or customers that might be invited into this particular space. So we have external. I've created one, just called it a name, Google Workspace, a training project. And I also have another one, just research and development, to give you an idea. So I can have multiple spaces with different members or external stakeholders, customers, etc., and I can jump between the various spaces. What does the actual space consist of? It consists of chat. Unlike the chat where it was a one-to-one or a group chat, when you have an actual space, when you actually post a chat in the space, that means it has access, any of the members have access to that particular or to those particular chats. If you wanted to flag all your members in a space to let them know that you wanted to invite them all to open up a discussion, to review a document, etc., you just put in at all. And I'll just type something in for want of putting that in. So at all will actually flag every member that there is something up and coming. So at all. You'll also notice, just like the one-to-one chat, you have the plus sign. You can actually go to your Google Drive or calendar invitations, and I'll go through that in more detail with you in a moment, just to see what's around the actual chat itself. So not unlike the one-to-one or group chat underneath your chat app. You'll notice here now it splits out into files. So under files, you can add new files. So you can share files with your colleagues. So underneath the chat, let me just go back here for a moment. You'll notice here I put navigating hybrid work, Google Workspace handbook into the chat on the previous day. You'll see that I just added it to it yesterday at 10:47 to be exact. But if I go to the files, it's in one place for all of your actual files. So if you had lots of files that have been added to your chat, you can then have one place to see all your files in actual one place. You'll notice also you've got tasks as well, where you can assign tasks to different colleagues, etc. So let me just click on to this particular space, because in this particular space, I have a list of the actual chats, the actual files, and I popped in a few tasks just to show you what the actual tasks look like. So here you can see you get a list of the tasks, when they're due, and who they've been assigned to. And you'll actually notice along the right-hand side, you've the option here to jump out into your calendar. You can go to keep if you kept any items. You can actually go to your tasks as well by clicking onto it. And it just brings up your task pane on the right-hand side where you can see all of your tasks to be able to manage them in one particular area. So how do we go about creating an actual workspace? To actually create a space, if you look at the space option, you have a plus beside it where it says create or find a space. So if I click on to create a space, it brings up the option to create an actual space. So I can create or browse, find an app or a meeting request. So I'm actually going to go in to create a space. So when I click on to create a space, it will give me the option to name the actual space. And for this one, I'm just going to call it a training project. So we'll call it a training project. On this particular one, I can have a description about what's going to be positioned in the actual space, so the type of details that will be put into the space. So the description here will be the training material that we'll be looking at, and upcoming training ideas. I'm just typing something here just to have it so you'll see where it comes up. On new apps, we'll call it. So Google Workspace, when we're talking about it, like you have your chat, you also have your actual Gmail, etc. So you might have additional apps coming up. So we'll have an area where we can share that. And you'll notice underneath here, you can enter names or emails of persons, of groups who you want to join this particular space. So you can do it while you're setting up the space or when you create the space. So if I pick marketing at SureSkills, yeah, I can pick other colleagues in my directory. So Michael, and you'll actually see I'll invite Chris as well. I can put in external people. So I have someone set up externally on this particular one, Mary Ward 612 at gmail.com. So just a dummy one here. And you'll notice it says external. So if you have the ability, you can invite external people into the environment as well. Not allowed on this one, apologies, because why is it not allowed? If I go to the advanced, I have to say allow people from outside your organization. So once you put the tick into allow people outside your organization, it will allow people from outside your organization. Only space managers can post items into it. That's a new one that came out in May 2023. It might be something for like an announcement space where you don't want people to post any chats, etc. They can put the emojis in with the thumbs up, etc. But it's more like a general space in an actual company where they might want announcements. So, you know, keeping people informed about different things that are coming online. So for that one, that's what only space managers can post. And learn more will give you additional information about it. So I'm going to say create. And it has now created the actual new training project. And again, you can see because I added someone externally, it will prompt me or let me know or alert me that there is external people also in this particular space. Click onto the options and you'll get a drop-down menu where you can manage the actual space. So you'll see you can go in and manage the members. Again, you can go in, add additional members, or if you're a space manager, you will be able to remove them from the space as well. So it's important when you're looking at creating spaces, what type of permissions or what people can do within the actual spaces themselves. So when we talk about the space manager, that is the manager of the space that would have the overall permissions of being able to keep track of what's happening in the space. They can add participants, they can add all in a space to notify all members, they can delete a message, turn on and off chat history. They can assign a member, update space access settings, update space permissions, leave space, block and report spaces, and delete a space. Excuse me, I'll just change that now. Apologies. Delete a space. So they are the options that you can use under a space manager. There are a few other ones as well, but I just picked out a few just to give you an idea. What's the difference between a space manager and a space member? And you'll notice I have an asterisk between some of these options, like add participants at all in a space to notify all members, edit space descriptions and guidelines, turn on and off chat history, but the other ones, they can leave the space at any stage, or they can block or report a space for misuse of the actual space itself. Now, how does that happen? So let's jump back into the actual space again. And if you look at the actual space itself, if you look at your space settings underneath here, this is where you have the permissions. So it might be an idea to know about these, because at the moment members can modify space details, they can turn on and off the chat history, and they can use at all. So if I didn't want to allow as the space manager, I can turn off all of these options to make sure that only the space managers can add those particular options. So all members who can manage, or space managers only. So you can change the actual permissions on the actual space itself. Space details, yeah, just say okay, just to confirm that. Space details, this is where you can go in and edit the actual name or change the guidelines, descriptions, and so forth. So just to recap on that again, underneath the training space, you'll have a list of options that you can use. As the space manager, you can at any stage delete the actual space. For example, I have a space that a colleague created previously where there are a couple of chats in it, but I'm not the owner of this space, so I don't have the option. I'm not the space manager, so I don't have the option to delete that space. Okay, so let's say you have the space created, then you have the option to create the chats. Yeah, add people, share files, and assign tasks. So you can click onto the file tab, you can add the files from within the file tab, or from within the chat. You can click on the actual plus here. You'll actually see, yeah, you can go to your Google Drive. You can actually attach an actual file from your Google Drive. You can actually create a doc, or you can create a slide or an actual sheet. And if you wanted to create a Google Doc, what will happen is this document will be saved to my drive. So it will be my Google Drive as the actual over not the actual space, but my personal drive is where this particular file will be created, but it will be shared with the space. So if I title this training material update, yeah, and just say share, it then will share that with my colleagues in this particular space. And you'll see here, it brings it out where I can then type in information in regard to this is a space. And I can type in the document. And what you'll also notice is that there's an indicator. And this is telling me that Kathy is now also co-authoring the actual file with me on my training material update. So Kathy, if you wouldn't mind just typing hello or typing something there just to show that this is an area where we can co-author and collaborate live with each other in this particular environment. So you'll actually see we can add it, edit, or add, delete text from it within the actual document itself. You can actually look also at the top where you can open up in a new tab, or you can close out of it. You'll see the options that you have within it. So that's giving you an idea of what you can do to collaborate in the actual file itself. If you wanted to see editing, suggestions and viewing, I gave everybody access to this to be able to edit the document in real time. Just typing any text there. So thank you, Kathy, for that. So I'm going to close out of that document now. You'll actually see that it will appear underneath the chat. But as I said, all of the documents that you actually post into the actual space will appear in the chat. But if you wanted a place where you can find all of your actual files, if you click onto the file, will give you all of the actual files in one area. So you can bring in your actual documents from your drive, or they don't have to be your actual docs that you're using or your sheets or your slides within your actual Google environment. You can bring in other files like PDF files, for example. You can click and drag, bring in a PDF file if you wanted to bring this in. Just close out of that. Yeah, so this will be bringing that in as well. So you'll see that coming in now. So you can bring in additional documents. So just drag that in. You'll see it's copying it into the space now. Just didn't pop it in previously. So now you can bring in PDF files, video clips, Word documents, Excel, PowerPoint documents. It does limit you to adding documents that are unsafe. And there's a list of those on the Google website if you wanted to go and see which documents you wouldn't be able to add. But there's a wide variety of files that you can add to your actual space to be able to collaborate and work with your colleagues on. Let's take a look at the actual tasks itself. So you see here, you can add tasks to the workspace. So I'll just click onto one that I created previously just to show you some of the tasks. I'm sure you don't want to watch me typing all of the tasks in, but here you'll see the tasks as have appeared. Anybody who's actually been assigned an actual task, when you add a task, so in here you might want to say, just typing something off the top of my head, you can add a date and time. And if you do add a date and time, this is very important because this means it'll show up in your calendar. So if I pick that this is for myself, maybe the 27th, I'll pick and maybe I'll set a time for 11:30 and just say okay. And I'm going to assign it to myself. So now I've assigned, when I add the task, that task then will appear. Now, if I look at my actual calendar, you'll actually see now any task that you have, update Google Chat history, will appear in the actual calendar. Once I put a tick on the tasks, if I take them off, it'll actually disappear when I refresh the actual web browser. So you can actually see, you can add tasks or to view them, or you can hide them if you don't want to see them coming up on your calendar. And of course, any meetings that you have will appear on your calendar as well. So if we go back here just for a moment, just to look, you can view your tasks in the actual space. As I mentioned earlier on, you can see your tasks from the actual task pane on the right-hand side, if you wish. And of course, you can then manage them from there, or you can see them in the calendar as well. So there's your chats, your files, and your actual tasks. Now, let's say we are working on a particular file, and maybe we need to have a chat about the actual file, but we want to do a video chat. So what you can do is add a video chat. Now, you might want to say at all if you wanted to bring in at all, so that everybody knows that they're going to be invited, just to alert them to this actual video meeting. And then you can send off the actual video meeting. That means anybody can click in to the space and be able to access this particular meeting. As you can appreciate, because we're looking at the webinar, my camera is taking over the webinar present. What I'm going to do is just jump across to some slides and just explain to you what you would actually see when you actually go into the actual webinar or into the actual meeting itself. So it would actually look like in the meeting where your camera is starting, you're connecting to it, you have the option to join, or you can present where you're sharing your screen. You have the option to manage your mic, and you also have your camera as well. When you click on to join, from previously, this is what I looked like the other day, bringing it in. Sometimes it comes up with little captions giving you insights in how to brighten your video in this particular instance, not now or try. So they're very useful for you if there's new releases or different things that happen within the Google Workspace. They'll give you little prompts to remind you that something is new in that environment. You'll also notice on this particular option, they have the ellipsis where you have more options, where you might have captions, etc., or setting up your actual environment. You'll find that underneath the more options. And this particular one is to blur your actual screen before you go into the actual meeting. Again, my colleague, Kathy, was in this particular one doing the demonstration. Because it's on the fly, you don't have the actual project meeting or the status of the actual meeting, which everybody can join the meeting. You get the toolbar at the bottom where you can manage the actual meeting, your camera, your actual mic, captions you can turn on and off, your emojis, I should say. You can share your screen, raise your hand, more options. There's polls, etc., which I'll show you. I've got a screenshot on this one just to show you where they are in a moment. But let's look at this one here, which is to share your actual screen. So if I click onto it, this allows you to share your Chrome tabs. So you can see on this particular slide, you've got your dashboard, Google Meet, your project training chat. So I can pick one of those items out. I could pick the spreadsheet here where I have budgets for September. You can do the window or entire screen. So you can decide how you want to share. You can also turn on your audio at the bottom. Again, I picked the window just to demonstrate this, that when you do decide to pick a window, whether you've one or two monitors in your environment, it will actually give you a warning to let you know, or an alert to avoid an infinity mirror. Don't share your entire screen or browser windows. Share just a tab or a different window instead. So just like a security warning to remind you of what you're doing and what you're sharing. Again, just on the ellipsis here that I wanted to explain, when you click onto them, you've got breakout rooms, very useful for brainstorming, etc. You can break out your team into different rooms. You have polls where you can set up a list of topics or questions that you might want to launch throughout the meeting. So you can set them up before the meeting. So this is giving you an idea what a poll would look like. Ask a question, give a set of options, and then you can get your audience to respond to the actual polls within the actual meeting. So you can set up the drafts beforehand and then launch them throughout the actual meeting. So hopefully that gives you an idea that when you go into your Google Chrome, you can set up a video meeting and on the fly, and all your colleagues can join. Alternatively, you can click on the actual plus and you can do a more formal invite. So you can go to a calendar invite and invite your participants to an actual meeting, and that will actually then appear on your actual calendar itself. So that hopefully gives you an idea of what your chat, your spaces look like, how to collaborate with your colleagues, and also where you might want to store all your meetings in one area. So thank you so much, guys, for joining me today. And I'd like to hand over to yourself in case you have any questions that you'd like to ask me.